Hey, welcome to episode 3 of the Light-Minded podcast. Welcome. Today we have with us our guest, Sara Wilson.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. It's a privilege to have you here. So Sara is a clinical hypnotherapist and owner of Mind Garden Hypnotherapy and the lead trainer for the New Zealand School of Professional Hypnotherapy.
Yes.
Sara loves working with children and has a particular specialty within this space. She loves working with people who are just beginning to discover their spiritual side and connecting people to their true purpose. Sara has been professionally working with hypnotherapy for 8 years, but using hypnotherapy her whole life. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for being here. We're so lucky to have you here and to experience your work. Both me and Beck have obviously experienced your work before and been in your space for a while. We were just talking before how you're a big piece of our puzzle, if it wasn't for you and part of the journey that we've been on through hypnotherapy and doing that, but through the school, we wouldn't be here, we wouldn't have met,
I think that's one of the things that I love about hypnotherapy and just working with people in general is often it is that missing piece of the puzzle that just goes, and the lights come on and it's wow, it just opens the doors for a new way of thinking. And that often leads people to that true path of what they're supposed to be doing. People often say I didn't realize that this was what I was supposed to be doing, or this was the place that I would end up in. And that's the kind of magical stuff that I love.
I talked about that in episode 1, that it was just a knowing, a feeling, a pull towards hypnotherapy in the school. And I didn't quite know why, but I just knew I had to follow that pull, that calling.
Yeah. And you're not alone. There's so many people. I think you're the same, maybe.
I just made a call and then I signed up, and there was no thought really involved. It was just this is what I'm doing. And the moment I walked in, I was like, this is where I belong.
I am home.
I remember the same thing, walking in that first day and thinking, I've found my people. This is where I'm supposed to be.
Yes. And I think, especially for me, and something that Kylie and I were discussing earlier, is with you being that kind of piece of the puzzle with moving into hypnotherapy, it was like this. I had a confidence already there, but it was this belief that you gave me or offered me, I should say. And it was this. It really was. It was amazing. It was just. I feel like you do it with everyone. Is you believe in them.
Yeah, you see that potential.
Yeah.
So lovely.
Thanks. I think it's, one of those things you can either see the worst in people or the best in people. And, what's the point in seeing the worst? If, the whole premise of hypnotherapy is to go for what you want, not what you don't want. And so,
we talked about that in the last session.
So I guess it becomes part of who you are, and you instead of meeting someone and thinking, I don't like this thing about you, I don't like that thing about you, you really focus on the things you do like and the things that, kind of elevate that person. And the more you elevate them, the better they become anyway. So it's a kind of cool thing.
That being pro stuff. I was listening to a motivational video the other day by, I forget the guy's name, but he was talking about how we can often... somebody might ask us a question and then we start telling them about what we don't like about it. And he was saying how we should really distinguish ourselves by being pro stuff rather than anti stuff. So being able to actually share the good things rather than the things we can dwell on or get stuck in those cycles of dwell.
Absolutely. And I think anybody that, most of my clients, and you'll probably find the same with yours, most people come because they're focusing on a problem in their life or a negative situation or something that's happening for them. And they put all their energy into the problem, into thinking about the problem, into, the words that they use around the problem. And it's such an easy shift. And that when I ask them sometimes, you've told me what you don't want, tell me what you do want. The blank look on their face, because they haven't thought it. They literally haven't thought about what they want. They've thought so much about what they don't want, and it's become this massive thing in their lives. And then when they kind of, it's almost like they wake up and they go, what do I want? And they start kind of going, well, I'd like it to be like this. And there's almost this, I can't believe that could happen. So then they swing back to what they don't want.
Yes.
But the more you pull them into what you do want, the more they get to stay there, and the more energy they put that side.
Yeah, more focused towards the solution rather than the problem state.
Yeah. And that saying of like where your attention goes, energy flows, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Where focus goes, energy flows.
Yes.
I think that's one of the, things that I teach everyone on that first day of hypnotherapy training is about where your focus goes, because, and I've got that in big letters as they walk in the door, because it's such an important part of how we train our minds and how we bring, you're thinking about abundance, you're thinking about, what I want to bring into my life. You've got to focus on what you want, not
the
what
brain
you don't
starts
want.
to actually look for that and seek
That's
that out.
it,
And
absolutely.
it's gone out of my brain right now, but the reticular activating system.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is just this big fancy word for basically saying that, we begin seeking more of what we do want rather than what we don't, which is
And
great.
there's a really good examples of that, when you're looking for a new car, and you've chosen the colour and the make that you're wanting, and then suddenly you're driving down the street and they're everywhere, and you're like, your brain is, because you've been focusing on that, is looking for them, and it says there was the same amount before, and you just didn't see them.
It's interesting you say that, because on the way in, Kylie's like, Tesla.
I see Teslas everywhere, and unfortunately now I've like conditioned my daughter for the whole role modelling. She also yells out Teslas. We just see them everywhere now, which is so funny.
And it's amazing, isn't it? Well, we used to play this game, me and Jake, in the car, when he was quite sick, and we'd be going, in and out to hospital quite a lot. And it's basically based on that reticulating activating system. And I said, well, let's just play this game where, you close your eyes and we'll say a colour, and we'll just say yellow, 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 yellow. And when you open your eyes, tell me what you see. And so he did it, and he was like, oh, there's yellow everywhere. And there's a daffodil, there's this, there's this, there's this. And we did it with a few colours, and that was quite fun. And I said, well, let's change it, let's make it a word. And he was like, let's make it silly. So I said, okay, we'll do silly. And so I got him to close his eyes, and he went, silly, 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 silly. And he opened his eyes, and we were right behind, I don't know if you've seen, in Christchurch, there's a man, like a drain person, who's called the Poo Man.
I know.
Yeah, and he's like, I'll do you. Yeah. The Poo Man. Oh my god! And so we were behind his truck, which had the Poo Man written on it, and we just burst out laughing. It was hilarious.
So good.
And after that, we saw about 4 or 5 different things that literally made us laugh out loud. There was a
good.
lady with a really weird hat on, and it just shows you wouldn't have noticed those things if your mind wasn't primed to see them. So if someone has depression or anxiety, often what they're doing is putting all of their focus on what they don't want, and they're seeing more of it. So they see more of the things that make them feel scared. They see more of the things that make them feel down and depressed, rather than...
And it becomes familiar.
Yeah, it becomes familiar, and it becomes a pattern. It becomes kind of...
Comfortable.
Well,
exactly. Comfortable or unreasonable.
Yeah.
Like...
Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But
I think we're hardwired in that way, isn't it?
That's
that negativity bias to always...
It's like part of that primal
and...
kind of response to protect us as well. Well, we all know that our subconscious is doing everything it can to keep us safe in our body and our mind, but sometimes it can, play tricks and then send us off in a direction that we don't want to go.
Yeah, and often those patterns are, they've been put into action at a moment in time when they were needed, and then they just kind of go on automatic repeat because there's no kind of retraining of that moment. So a lot of the time with hypnotherapy, when we go back to that kind of initial sensitizing event and make changes to it, even the way we view it, because even if it's like 10 minutes on, we will view it in a different way. If it's 10 years on, then we're going to view it in a completely different way with the resources that we've got in that time. So it can be a huge, make a huge difference when we're able to do that kind of retraining of our brain in that way.
100%. So with your journey into hypnotherapy and what led you in, would you be able to just share with us a little bit about your journey into hypnotherapy?
Yeah, well, Kylie said in the beginning, I've been doing it my whole life, and it was only kind of when I trained that I realised I'd been doing it my whole life. It wasn't... I hadn't intentionally been doing hypnotherapy my whole life. But I guess when you look at what hypnosis is, putting yourself into that calm, relaxed state, allowing your mind to go into trance. It's what children do, you know, when they play. They're in the trance state anyway. And that kind of is why I'm really interested in working with children, but we'll maybe talk about that a wee bit later. But with, so I guess like all through childhood, I was using that. I remember my teacher saying to my mum, she's never going to do anything with her life because she's always looking out of the window and daydreaming. And I think to myself, how funny is it that now my job is literally daydreaming?
Yeah, it's like there was almost like that negative connotation with it, but now you can turn it into a really powerful positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And so kind of grew up using my imagination a lot. I used to write stories and kind of quite creative as a child. And then probably when I was in my 20s, I did a little bit of study in hypnosis, just by personal reading and things like that, and learned self-hypnosis. So I just found some books in the library and recorded some scripts for myself and you know, practiced that way, and some of the results were just really amazing. And I thought, oh, well, this is really awesome. And I also did some kind of more spiritual stuff as well. I was really into meditation, and I did some work with past life regression at that time, and the kind of results for that just blew me away. It was really, really interesting. And then I kind of forgot about hypnotherapy for about 20 years. You know, kind of doing it myself, but not really taking much notice of what I was doing. And then it would have been when my youngest son, Jake, he was diagnosed with leukemia when he was 6. So at that time, he, you know, like when the child is diagnosed with something like that, it's a real huge shock to the whole family.
Gosh, yeah.
But I think, you know, for him, he just kind of took it all in his stride. In the beginning, it was like, yeah, I'm sick, I've got to take this medicine, I've got to do this. Until he had some adverse reaction to some of the pills that he was taking that made him vomit. And after that kind of moment of trauma, he couldn't take any pills after that. So it just got so frustrating, because then you'd have to take the liquid form, and then you'd have to, we put it in these massive milkshakes that took him all day to drink, and then it'd be not time for the next one. So I said to him, look, there's got to be a way that we can help you to take the pills again, and if there was a way to do it, would you want to? And he was like, yeah, I want to be able to do it, I just can't do it because it makes me feel sick. So I kind of had this light bulb moment of, I'll take him to a hypnotherapist. And so we did, and it was just the most amazing kind of thing I've ever done, I think. We went in, and there was a lovely lady, Marion, she still practices on the hills in Christchurch. And we went in, and she sat him down, and I think he was only in there for about half an hour, and he came out and said, I can do it now. And I was like, what do you mean you can do it now? You've only been in there half an hour. And so we had been practicing with like M&Ms and sprinkles and all of these kind of different things to help him be able to do it. And he couldn't even like put a Tic Tac on his tongue and swallow it. Like that was like enough to make him vomit. So it was, I said, well, you know, try with a Tic Tac. And he was like, no, I can do the real thing. I was like, are you sure? Try it with a sprinkle, like just do that first. And he was like, no, I can do the real thing. So I got them out and gave them to him, and he took his drink and went, I can do it. See, there, told you so.
Amazing.
And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. And yeah, I think it was the next day I phoned Ruth and said, can I get a place on the course, because I need to learn how to do this.
Wow, that's so...
So that was it. And then...
Always meant to be?
Yeah, always meant to be. And I remember there was one time, like a couple of years after that, Jake would have been like maybe 8 or 9, and he said, we were talking about me like being a hypnotherapist, and I, you know, finished my training and opened my clinic and everything. And he said, well, you wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't for me, would you? I was like, yeah, okay, thank you, Jake.
Yeah.
It's interesting how children can lead us into those spaces and or situations, often situations that are the hardest and most challenging, or full of those adversities that we've got to work through as well, which must have been incredibly
I'm just really thankful though, because the tools that I learned on the course were so helpful for not just for his symptoms, but also for anxiety that he had around the procedures, around just lots and lots of different things he used. He would go, can I have hypno tonight, and get into bed. And
did you find that it was a roll-on effect to the whole family?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I think my older boy Noah, he was probably a wee bit older and not as open to doing that, but I think even just the conversational language that you use and the way you think about how you frame things and all of those skills are so useful, just raising kids and having a family and allowing that positive energy to be what you focus on.
Yes. The power of words is phenomenal, really, in terms of our language and how we phrase things. It can make such a massive impact just by a slight change or a slight shift to create different physiology on the body, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even the same word but different tones.
Yes.
And the emphasis
tone.
that you put on words, and I think it's just fascinating.
Yeah, it's like magic.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Word alchemy.
Yeah, I love that.
And how did you find, starting that business, the hypnotherapy business, while also trying to be a mum and raise 2 boys and balancing anything? I mean, do you have any other tips for, women or mothers who are starting a business or wanting to follow their passion?
Yeah, I think for me, I had this idea in my head that I would have to kind of like leap off a cliff and just become a hypnotherapist overnight. And it really didn't work like that at all. Yeah. It was a really organic process. And I think if you're passionate about something and you really want to do it, just start doing it. Just start. Absolutely. Just start. And I remember, I was working in a preschool at the time, and just part-time while, Jake was in hospital, and we would, and I'd be talking about this, and I'd be, even when I was learning, when I was on the course, and I just would ask them, like, will you be my victim? Will you come and do some hypnotherapy with me? And like quite playfully and have fun with it. Yeah. And one of my first people that I worked with was a lady that was one of the preschool teachers, and she wanted to give up smoking. And I was so nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if this is going to work. And it was just so good because, she knew I was a student, and I knew that if it didn't work, she wasn't any worse off than she would be. But it was just amazing. She stopped that day, and I guess because I was doing it for free at that time, then I was like, well, can you give me some feedback? And she wrote a beautiful review for me. So then I had a review to put on my website, and I think it doesn't have to be money, but it has to be an exchange of energy. 100%. So even if you're doing something you love, don't give it away for free. Like I said I was doing it for free, but it wasn't really for free. It was for that feedback and for the review and for the learning. So at least you're getting something back.
That's great advice.
And I think, then it just organically grows. You end up, she went and told a few friends, and they booked in, and they told some people and they booked in, and suddenly I dropped a day of work, and then I dropped another day. And then my boss said, are you going to actually finish, or you just want to do one day? And so,
it was just like that natural building and letting it organically happen, which is really beautiful. Would you also, there was something that you mentioned before as well, and it was around the past life regression. Would you be able to kind of share a little bit more on what that is, just for our listeners who may not have, much knowledge in it, just to kind of share why that can be powerful, and around that kind of spiritual side, and and how you help others discover theirs.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess there can be a lot of different avenues to get to past lives. It can be seen as, you know, a real past life if you believe that in reincarnation and that you've had many lives that have come before. But I've worked with lots of people that don't have a spiritual belief in it, but have the understanding that their mind could make up a story and that could be a very helpful story. So there's two ways of looking at it. It can be that you look at it and go, well, it's a story that my mind's made up and it's got useful help from my subconscious in it, or that it's a real past life that you've experienced, through reincarnation. And the way that, my belief is that we do come back again and again and again, and that's been my belief for a long time. And some of the past life regressions that I've done for myself have been just so fascinating and full of just detail that I think to myself, well, why would I have made that up? Yeah, it's just such a bizarre thing to make up. Like the very first one I talked about when I was in my 20s, and my friend and I were just reading these past life regression scripts to each other, and she said, lay down on the couch and I'll read it out and close your eyes. And and I remember she said, look down at your feet. What are on your feet? I said, I've got sandals on. And then I said, I've got man feet. And, I think my kind of perception was that I was going to go into this kind of like, trance state and see like almost like, I know, those kind of cliche ones, like I would be an Egyptian or I would be but I'm looking down and I've got these sandals and I've got man feet. And
were they Roman sandals?
They could have been. But it was just the details. So she asked what year it was and the and where I was, and I said I'm in this place is called Poe. I don't know why it's called Poe, but that's what it's called. And the only reference to Poe I had at the time was like, that's a Teletubby.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, oh wow, we're in the Teletubbies film.
Afterwards, and the life basically was, I ended up kind of looking at the rest of me and realising that I was a kind of apprentice priest at that time. And the scene that I was in was I was running with the actual priest and we were trying to get back to the church. And I remember this like panic of we need to get there. And when we got there, we barricaded the doors and there was a cupboard at the front. We opened the cupboard and took out all these kind of farming equipment, kind of scythes and things like that to defend ourselves. And then that we could hear horses outside. And the next thing, the church was being burnt down. So, and the last memory I've got of that kind of, and it feels like a memory, is just being kind of like raised up out of it and looking down and thinking, oh, I finished another one, kind of a feeling. It's almost like a game over feeling. Anyway, afterwards we looked up the details. We looked up Poe and the dates that I'd had, and there were lots of churches that were burnt around that area. It was Po, the River Po in Italy.
Oh my gosh!
And
chills.
I know.
It's like, it can feel like a deja vu feeling as well, right?
Exactly.
It's bizarre.
So
very cool.
I think whether you believe it or not, it still can be really useful and interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I share the same belief, and I think that Kylie does as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So, but that's
it's really interesting.
Very cool.
Before we wrap up, is there like a favourite sort of go-to like hypnotherapy tool that you might use on a daily basis to kind of help shift your energy or your state?
Yeah, I think the one that I use probably most often is some of the anchors that I've kind of programmed in for myself. And there's a technique I use in hypnosis which is called control room. And in the control room, it's like going into the control room of your mind, where you can turn things up, turn things down. And a funny story: the other week I had electrolysis for the first time, which is quite painful if you've never had it.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, oh, this would be a great way to try my pain control dial.
Yes.
So and I've kind of got this one on my hand that I can just kind of wind down or wind up.
Yeah.
So I connected that to the pain mechanism, and then I was like, well, I'm going to just put it down to 1, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I can't feel it anymore.
Amazing.
And I was like just playing with it, kind of turning it up a little bit, turning it down, and turning it up a little bit more, and just having that experience of being like absolutely in control of the sensations that we're getting through. It's almost like putting a block there.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, really cool.
That's
So
very
it was
cool.
actually quite fun to experience the pain and be able to manipulate that
Yes.
sensation.
Yeah,
Have
so
that
what kind
mind-body
of
connection, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what kind of is right for you at that time, and being able to actually have a tool to, you know, work with it or work, you know, through it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I've used that for like dentists and things like that. But
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's so cool. Well, thank you so much. We've really
Yes.
enjoyed our time chatting with you.
Thanks for having
and
me, guys.
Everything
It's
that
been
you've
so
shared
fun.
with us as well. If people wanted to get in touch with you, would you suggest that the best way to do that is through website or?
yeah, mindgarden.co.nz is my website. And if you're interested in training in hypnotherapy, then you can check out the Professional School of Hypnotherapy.
Amazing.
Highly
And
recommend.
I can
I'm
link
happy
everything.
to chat and tell you about the course and what you can learn. There's a 3-day course as well, so you
Yeah.
don't have to kind of dive into becoming a hypnotherapist. You can kind of just dip your toe in the
Taste
water
it.
and see if it's for you.
And I'll list everything in the show notes as well. And yeah, it's been amazing having you here and
Thank
sharing
you.
your
Awesome.
journey and whatnot. So thank you
Hopefully we
so
can have you
much.
back again.
Yeah, that would be lovely. I'd love to come back.
Cool. Thank you.